Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Board. And before I get into my brand new 53-man roster after minicamp and after the signing of Germaine Pratt, I've always had this conversation when I've been live on the Raiders Report of, imagine if we did a 53-man roster with the 194,000 subs that we have on this channel. So here's what we're going to do. If you think that you deserve to be on the Raiders Report 53-man roster, if you're not subscribed, you got zero chance of getting in. Comment me down below, and if we get enough of them, I'm going to do my best to put together a 53-man. So coming up here on today's show, I'm going to be doing a brand new updated version, and every time the Raiders sign a big-name guy like a Germaine Pratt, or after a big thing in the offseason like minicamp OTAs, I like to just kind of go through and just show the nation what I think that this Raiders roster would have potentially looked like if cuts had to happen today down to 53. So right now, as it stands, the Raiders have 91 players in total on their roster, and what you're going to see is I'm going to go by depth chart, and the numbers that you're going to see by the players is me literally counting out who I'm keeping on that 53-man. We're first going to start here with the quarterbacks: Geno Smith, Aidan O'Connell, Cam Miller, Carter Bradley. 4 guys on this roster, and I just anticipate that this team's going to end up keeping 3 QBs, and I don't really think that there's too much surprises if I'm being 100% honest with y'all. Geno's an easy one. Aidan O'Connell, Cam Miller. The Raiders ended up drafting Miller. AOC and Miller are going to compete for QB2. There is no, and I mean no debate at all around who the Raiders' #1 quarterback is. Let's go to the running back room next up here on the Raiders Report. And when you go out and you draft Ashton Jeanty or any back in the top 10 in the NFL draft, you know that they're going to get a lot of work. I know that Pete Carroll kind of mentioned the running back by committee. I just think that that's Carroll just saying, well, we're not going to give 100% of the carries to Jeanty, which shouldn't surprise anyone. When you really look, though, at the bottom of this roster, I think that the Raiders no doubt are going to keep Jeanty, Mostert, and McCormick. But then between Laube, Zamir White, Chris Collier, I mean, it could be a coin flip. I'll be real with y'all. There's a part of me that wonders if the Raiders really have this battle between Laube and Collier, and they're almost just going to make Zamir White the odd man out. Zeus has lost some weight, which has helped him. But if I'm thinking about what I would do for this roster, that final running back, the final running back that the Raiders end up keeping, I think they got to have special teams value. And Zamir White might be the more talented running back. It's probably up for debate. But at the end of the day, Jeanty, Mostert, McCormick are the 3 running backs I'm the most confident in. So this guy right here, he's got to have special teams value. And I think Laube does have the most special teams value out of all of those running backs. Coming up next here is the wide receiver room, and man, oh man, if you watch this show a lot, you're going to notice a lot of changes with my Raiders wide receiver depth chart, but I think it's because Tre Tucker and Thorton Jr. have earned that right, and I think if the season started today, this would be your top 3 receivers out there on the board. Now, in my typical other 53-mans that I've done this year, I have had the Raiders keeping 6 wide receivers. Well, guess what? That is changing here on today's show, and I have the silver and black keeping only 5. It's Jakobi, it's the 3 wide receivers they drafted, and then it's Tre Tucker. When you hear a lot of the reports that have been coming out from minicamp just about the Raiders using more tight ends, about the 2 tight end sets, I know, yet again, which is okay. I like the 2 tight end sets when you got Bowers and Mayer. But then also, apparently this team does plan on using a lot of 3 tight end sets, which also I don't think really should surprise you because Pete Carroll used to use that all the time in Seattle. And if you're going to draft a running back in Jeanty, you know, when you have the talent that this team has of being able to stretch the field and your tight ends, I had to add an extra tight end, which means I had to take out a wide receiver. The pit comment coming up here on today's show, and I figured this would be a fun one. I know I was just going through my closet here at Chat Sports, and I have close to 150 Raiders jerseys. Now, a lot of them are all y'all's, right? But I want to know down below, what is your favorite Raiders jersey you own? You're going to get hit with a YouTube ad break while that ad is playing. Scroll on down and answer that question. Honestly, my favorite jersey that I own, and I'm just going to say it's the one that I probably have worn the most, it's either the David Zahn or the Raider Ron jerseys that I have. The jersey that I have in my closet is Davante Adams from when the breaking news ended up happening. It kind of sounds like, though, I got to get an actual Raiders jersey. If I had to pick which ones I would want to get next, I do have a Bo Jackson, which I love, though. It's kind of like one of these baseball jerseys. I think the next jersey I got to get is Mad Max, and that's the one I'm going to try to go out and get. Let's look at the tight end room here. Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer. These are your no doubt top 2 tight ends that are going to be making the team. I actually did get a report, this would have been on Thursday, that Ian Thomas just shows that he is like a reliable tight end 3, which is exactly what this organization is looking for. Somebody who can block, somebody who can be a red zone presence, and at the end of the day, like that's what you need in your tight end 3 when you got Bowers and Mayer. Though, between Shorter, Ismail, Runyon, and Conroy, there's been a lot of competition, and I do really think that the Raiders end up keeping a 4th tight end because they are so confident in Thomas's ability to be a blocker. From what I have heard, and again, we're basing this off of 3 days of practice, June 10th, 11th, and 12th. The guy that I was told stood out the most was Qadir Ismail, just because he's a little bit longer, lankier, and has a lot of those receiving skills. So if you're confident in your first 3 tight ends, and you're only going to keep 5 wide receivers, which tight end helps you be, I guess, the best other receiver, if you will? And this team wants a lot of length. So I'm going to go with Qadir Ismail, which might surprise some people, to make this 53-man. Let's now go to the big boys. We know that Spytek values the trenches, and the players that are featured are the starters. These are the guys that are going to be a lock. Now, I have gone back and forth with certain offensive linemen between Thayer Munford, between Dalton Wagner, and I have flipped and I have flopped them every time I have done this show. Well, guess what? I'm going to do it again. I'm going to put Thayer Munford in now over Wagner. The Raiders drafted Charles Grant. They drafted Caleb Rogers. You're not going to move on from those guys. Jordan Meredith was actually playing backup center to Jackson Powers Johnson for most of the practices because Thayer Munford was getting work at left guard behind Dylan Parham. And if they are going to use Munford as a guard, he's going to be a good player. And I'm confident in Munford as a guard. If the Raiders were going to try to keep him as an offensive tackle, well, then I just thought Dalton Wagner was the better overall offensive tackle. If you keep Munford and he gives you some of that versatility, I am a fan of Munford. I know he struggled last season. He had some injuries, but I had to put him up here on this list. And if you're counting at home, we're at 25 players before we get to the defensive side of the football. Also, I know Father's Day. I'll be real. I'm recording this video on Friday. I don't know exactly when I'm going to put it out over the weekend, just in case anything happens with the Las Vegas Raiders. What I do know is Father's Day is on Sunday. And as much as I want to get my dad some Raiders gear, he's not a Raiders fan, I know. But maybe your dad is a Raiders fan. Or maybe, you're trying to get your kids to be Raiders fans. Whether you need hats, t-shirts, sweatshirts, they got toddler jerseys, your significant other. I don't know. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, you got married in like the last week. You want to get your wife something? Chatsports.com/Raiders sale. That link is going to be available to everybody that clicks into this video down below in the comments, down below in the description. If you need Raiders stuff because Father's Day is this weekend, I'm going to tell you this. I actually don't know if you're going to get a better deal on Raiders stuff for the rest of the summer. You probably would have to wait until August, right before preseason gets rolling again. So if you don't need anything in July, all good. If you do need something in June and July, now's your time to take advantage of that deal. Let's go to the defensive side of the football now. Malcolm Kuntz, Tyree Wilson, Max Crosby. These are the easy names. We know that they're going to end up making the squad. But then there's a lot of other names on here between Andre Carter and Charles Snowden. Do you go with a UDFA and John Joyner or Jahavi Harvey? Or do you go with Ogu, right? And just because I know that the Raiders have so much confidence in those top 3 guys, I'm going to go with the player that I've just heard the most good about, and that's Charles Snowden. And just like I mentioned earlier with Munford and Wagner, I've kind of flipped and flopped Snowden also with somebody like Andre Carter. I haven't gotten too much information on Carter, and I know a lot of players in that locker room love Snowden. So because they love him and because he did have a good year last season, if he continues to grow and develop, they like these long, lanky guys. I also was told, this is probably about a week ago at this point, that somebody close to Pete Carroll said Charles Snowden reminded them of like a Bruce Irvin. I'm going to say Bruce Irvin is a stretch. I would say Charles Snowden would be like the Dollar General Temu version of a guy like Bruce Irvin, which hopefully that's not too big of a knock. I just try to be as honest as I possibly can. Prove me wrong, Snowden. Please, prove me wrong. Let's go to the defensive tackles now. Again, some of the big boys on the interior. And Christian Wilkins, him being out and not practicing, I just think if we were going to enter the season and Wilkins was a little bit of a question mark, I think at the absolute minimum, you have to keep 6 defensive tackles just in case. So the 6 DTs that I'm going to end up keeping are obviously Wilkins. They re-signed Adam Butler this offseason. to a 3-year, $16.5 million deal. You draft Tonka Hemingway in the 4th. You draft J.J. Pegues in the 6th. Those are easy ones. Leki Fotu has been predominantly the main nose tackle at minicamp, and that's just because he's a humongous human being. I'm also going to stick with John Ulala, who got some opportunities last season. I've heard from multiple Raiders players and coaches this offseason, not recently, but this offseason, that they really think that he's going to be able to grow into his own and a player that shows that he's getting better and better and better. So right now we're at 35. I think the number one position group that people were probably the most interested in was going to be the linebackers, because the Raiders recently this week, I believe it was on Wednesday, the Raiders signed veteran linebacker Germaine Pratt to a 1-year, $4.25 million deal. He is the highest paid linebacker on this squad. And because the Raiders did not draft Tommy Eichenberg or Amari Gainer, and because you just have so many bodies on this list, I didn't know exactly who I was going to keep, and I didn't know exactly who I was going to cut. So how about this? I'm going to tell you who I ended up keeping here in just a moment. If you want to join my fantasy football league, there's 2 ways you can enter in June. $5 super chat or $5 super thanks. We're going to announce the winner on June 30th. Or if you think you can take down Fabian Moreno, who right now is the bang MVP for the month of June, best of luck to you, but you better tune in when we go live. And right now we go live Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Had to do that weird with the ring. Every day, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Monday, Fridays, Matt and Sims. Tuesday, Thursdays, our regular Raiders shows. So for the linebacker room, I'm going to end up keeping 6 linebackers. And I am a little bit up in the air if I think that the Raiders are going to do this. Now, here's how I'm going to sell it. I'm going to sell it based on Pratt, Roberts, White. Clear guys that are going to make it. They drafted Lindenberg. Clearly going to make it. I believe Amari Gainer might be the best coverage linebacker out of anybody that's on this list, not named Germaine Pratt. So to me, he's somebody that I want to keep him. I know Max Crosby is very high on him. Tommy Eichenberg might be the odd man out, and you're going to see when I get through this depth chart or when I get through this show that I had to pick Tommy Eichenberg over, some other players that I bet other people might think that end up making this squad. The reason why I'm going to keep 6 linebackers, though, is because of the new kickoff return rules. And you hear a lot of these coaches talking about they want to have linebackers on special teams. So because of that, I'm looking at some of these players as also being special teamers, because you're not going to put Pratt, Roberts, or White out there on special teams. Honestly, I don't even know if they would put Cody Lindenberg, though. I know Lindenberg, Gainer, and Eichenberg would all do it in a heartbeat. Let's go to the cornerbacks. This is Pete Carroll's bread and butter. Eric Stokes, Darian Porter have been the top 2 starters. Jacorian Bennett, I don't think that we can forget about him. He was the Raiders' best corner last season. But because of the decisions that I've had to make here on the defensive side of the football, I had to get a little bit creative here. And I'm keeping 5 guys. DeCamerion Richardson is really a hard prospect for me to decipher this offseason, because not that I haven't heard anything good on him. I've just heard a very mixed report, and I've heard a mixed report on Richardson, and I've heard nothing but good on Porter and Stokes. Jacorian Bennett still getting healed up there a little bit. Darnay Holmes, though, could be a surprise cut candidate if the Raiders said, you know what, I want to keep one of these other guys, like maybe a Kai Blue Kelly if they like him, or if you're trying to keep an extra safety, because if you're keeping track with me at home, I am only allowed to keep 4 safeties left, and this is not easy to do. Jeremy Chin, Isaiah Polamau, those are your 2 locks. Lonnie Johnson Jr. has been working as the main 3rd safety at minicamp, so to me, in my mind, that means he's going to make the team, because he also can play special teams, and he also has that connection with the Raiders defensive backs coach Marcus Robinson from his previous years in Seattle, and also Joe Woods, who was there in New Orleans. I said Seattle. I meant New Orleans. And then between the safeties, are you going to keep Tre Taylor? Are you going to keep Thomas Harper? Are you going to keep Hudson Clark? Are you going to keep Chris Smith? You just cut Jonathan Sutherland. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to keep Thomas Harper over Tre Taylor. And I hate myself for doing it, because I think Taylor is such a great human being, and he's such a stand-up dude. Jim Thorpe Award winner in 2023. But it's the way that they're using Harper. And they are using Harper as like the 4th safety, but they're also using him as the nickel, where they're not putting Tre Taylor. So because of that, I am going to end up keeping Harper. Let's go to special teams. And if you see Tommy maybe a little Mellott It's because we got some pictures of him up here. He's going to be the punt returner. He's going to be the kick returner. At least that is what is listed right now. Carlson, A.J. Cole, Jacob Moyer, these are all easy ones. So because of that, Carlson comes in here at number 51. A.J. Cole comes in here at 52. And the long snapper, Mr. Moyer, he's going to come in here at number 53 to round out our brand new updated Las Vegas Raiders 53-man roster projection after minicamp and after the most recent signing of Germaine Pratt. Here's the other cool part that I love to do in the offseason. It's the offseason, y'all. And I know that not news, rumors, all this stuff doesn't happen every single day. Now, I could make an argument that I could talk about news and rumors every single day because there is always a little bit of something. But if the Raiders go out and they sign a player, you're going to get an updated version of this list because I love doing these shows because it also helps me get a better idea of where I think that the overall Raiders roster is going to be. Now, I've done plenty of these in my day. Quite frankly, I bet you I've done close to 53-man roster videos in the 7 years that I've been doing this show. And if there's one thing that I know I'm going to get, Mitch, how the hell did you leave this guy off the show? Because I got to get down to 53, right? Pete's going to have to make some tough decisions. I know that John Spytek's going to have to make tough decisions. I'll say this to every Raiders fan that watches this show. I love when y'all send me mock drafts. I would love for y'all to do a 53-man and send it to me. DM me on Instagram. DM me on Twitter, Mitchell Renz 365. When I really went through and I thought, all right, who are the hardest players, to not put on this 53 list? Here were the top 10 names. And maybe the next time that I do this show, and let me know what y'all think, if I just base it off of the top 53 players, instead of going position by position, I could be like, number 1, Max Crosby, because he's the best player on the team. Number 2, Ashton Jeanty. When I see the names on here, the Dalton Wagner, the Trey Taylor, the Zamir White, those were probably the hardest decisions that I had to make. And again, I think you're going to see a lot of practice squad players, but Taylor, Wagner, White, maybe even a Jalen Smith. It's a good thing that we have a deeper roster this season. Appreciate all y'all tuning in to this brand new Raiders 53-man roster video. Huge shout out to all y'all that made it this far in the video. And if you made it this far to the end, tell me you did. Say, Mitch, I made it this far.